What is going on, guys? This is Sean from the progressive metal band Devoted Fusion, and I'm here to give a very quick presentation of how I designed the album artwork for our next album, Ship Me to Heaven. Now, as you can tell, I started off with the background of the sky, and this photo that I took myself comes from Jones Beach, and this was probably back in 2018 that I took this photo, but to make it all nice and stuff, I wanted to create a nice blue background overall, so that way it creates a very nice setting. And then I went with a photo that I took of the lighthouse from Robert Moses. Now, Jones Beach and Robert Moses are two of the greatest beaches in Long Island, New York. So if you ever plan on visiting just for the sake of seeing beaches in Long Island, these are definitely high recommendations because they are very nice for what it's worth. Now, I love to care very much about the detail, as you can tell, of course, with the structures of the lighthouse and stuff. I always make sure that everything is nice and crystal clear here, and everything seemed to work out very nicely to make this a bit more transparent to the photo of the album artwork here. Now, one thing I should mention is that the album artwork that I'm presenting here, it's pretty much a mimic of what I had initially done, so it's not going to be super perfect like the album artwork that I'm currently showing for everyone, but this is pretty darn close. If you wanted to get an idea, this is the video for you, of course. But anyways, we now have our lighthouse in a transparent format, and it's all edited out for the most part here. And then from there, I had to work with some of the colors and mess around with the brightness and contrast with that. Now, it makes sense for the lighthouse to be black and white as shown here, but the houses, I think, needed to be a little more outside the box when it comes to colors. And I do want to give credit to Jack DiGiacomo for recommending that, just so it does not stay super monochrome throughout the entire album artwork. So give credit to bassist Jack DiGiacomo for that. But yeah, you can tell that I just want to make this as nice as I possibly could, just so it isn't super monochrome here. Then when that's all said and done, the lights and the light effects to this are a nice touch to the lighthouse, so that way it looks like it's bright and lighting up, and it seems to work very nicely once the lights are all set right there. And then we get to some of the stock photos that I took from Adobe, one of them being the ship here, which is very, very nice, but I also did not want to take the ship directly as it is. So how did I work with this? Well, I definitely had to make this transparent. So what I did was, I went around the outside of the edges. Now, I'm not going to show the entire editing process, but this is kind of an idea of what I have done with the ship, just to make it transparent. And of course, too much editing did that, but you can tell that the finished product of that transparent ship looks like that. It looks very nice, and it's going to fit very, very fortunately in this album artwork here. Now, the next part, which I figured was a lot of fun to work with, is, well, I'm getting the colors in here first just to make them pretty nice. But afterwards, I loved the fact that I was able to have this blend in with the clouds here. I needed to take a copy of the background and put that in, and then erase the areas that would have the background in front, and then you can tell the ship blends in very nicely with that. And then the final touch before we get to the logo and text is the flying birds, which are also Adobe stock photos, and these are black birds. Now, in the In-Ship single cover, those birds of seagulls I did take myself from Jones Beach, but the black birds I felt like would be a very nice touch to the album artwork itself. And When working with the editing of the birds, there wasn't too much complex work needed. All I needed to do was work with the brightness and contrast with that. And if I really needed to, I just work with some of the colors. But that's all said and done. And then I just add the logo and then the Ship Me to Heaven text that's here. And that is in companion text that was being used. And then you have the album artwork as shown here. So, hope you guys enjoyed this, and thank you very much for watching. We will be very pleased to show you what we have in store later on.